Okay, good day, students. I'm here to take you in agri-science. You're welcome to this lesson. In our last lesson, we talked about crop improvements. And what do we mean by that? How to upgrade crops. The crops we have, to upgrade them for better. At the end of this lesson, you have to understand what we mean by crop improvement, the methods we will use to upgrade crops, to improve crops, and then the advantages and some of the disadvantages. That's the problems facing the improvement of crops. First of all, let us know what we mean by crop improvement. Like I've explained, animal improvement simply means to upgrade the local animals we have. Already we have animals in our localities, but we want to make those animals we have to yield better products, to do better than they are doing. So one of the aims of animal improvement is to produce animals that can withstand, survive in the environment. When we say the environment, we talk about the weather, the climate. Because the climate is not conducive for some of the animals. And because of that, it affects them in their production. Again, to make the animals to produce better products, their byproducts. For example, milk. Animals to produce more milk than they are producing. To get better hides and skin that we use in our leather industry. To also produce animals that are very strong, that can be used in the farm work. You know, in this part of this country, we are not very familiar with using animals in the farm. But if you go to the north, the farm animals are very good source of farm power. They do a lot of work in the north. They are very useful to them. They also use them to transport when they harvest their products. They tie it on the back of the animals and the animals carry them home or to the markets for sale. Another aim of animal improvement is to produce animals that are resistant to pests and diseases. Because it has been proved that most of the losses encountered by farmers who rear animals is as a result of diseases and pests. So those animals that can withstand pests, in the outbreak of diseases, outbreak of pests, those animals will still produce more. Typical example is the N'dama, the type of cattle we have in the south. Even though they are growing, they are producing, they are living within the southern environment where you have a lot of tsetse flies. These tsetse flies bite them. But still, the animals still do very well. So we say they are tolerant to tsetse flies. Also, to produce animals that can yield hard eggs, like in the poultry industry. Those birds that can lay eggs, and the eggs, they have very hard shells. The eggs cannot crack or break easily because of the hard shells the eggs have. So these are some of the aims of animal improvement. Then we move on to ways of improving these animals. What are the methods used in animal improvement? One is by introduction. What do you mean by introduction? Bringing animals that are doing well in their environment to a new environment. The animals that are not even available in this environment, then you bring them in, introduce them into the new environment. And when they come, if the weather, the climate, the environment suits them, then you see that they will do well, even better than the animals that were already there. These new animals, we call them exotic animals. Then the animals that were originally in the environment are called local animals. Then the second method is by selection. What do we mean by selection? Selection means picking. Picking, select, pick, not all. You don't pick all. You select those animals with very good qualities, which are easily recognized by sense of sight. Selection, when you are selecting, selection may be natural or artificial. Natural or artificial selection. When we say natural selection, the selection that is done by nature. Let me give you, for example, there were some people, children born the same day with you, but those children are no longer alive. Naturally, they died. Naturally. And you were selected naturally to survive, to live. So in the same way, animals are like that. There are some animals that die naturally. Nothing killed them, nobody killed them. So they are eliminated. Then those that survive, some of them are picked, are selected. When you are selecting, there are certain things you bear in mind. How do you select? We have what we call individual selection. Picking one animal out of many. There are many, but there's a particular animal you pick. You leave the other, you pick the other. Individual selection, we call it individual selection. We also have mass selection, where you select in group. Then we have pedigree selection. And then we have progeny selection. So let's start with individual selection. Individual selection. This is the picking of one animal out of many that shows desirable characteristics. One animal. There are many animals. You pick one. Individual. One. Pureline Selection. We call it individual selection, or we call it Pureline Selection. Uko, what did I call it? Individual or Pureline Selection. They are saying the same thing. Picking one animal out of many that shows desirable characteristics. This type of selection leads to concentration of that character which is uniform and pure. Before you pick that animal, before you select that animal, there is something, there's a quality you saw in that animal. Maybe because of the color, or the height, or how the animal looks, or how the animal walks in the farm, whatever, you know. The animal breeder knows what he or she has in mind in selecting that animal. That is individual. Then we have mass selection. In mass selection, animals are selected or rejected on the basis of their own performance or merit. It involves selecting more than one animal with desired characters from a population of animals. Out of many, you pick some based on what the breeder has in mind. Mass selection. Then we go to pedigree selection. Pedigree selection, or we call it parent selection. Pedigree selection or parent selection. It's funny. Parents. What do we mean by that? The animals are selected on the basis of the performance of their ancestors, their parents. Do animals have parents? Do they have ancestors? Yes, they do. They do. Those animals that deliver, and then their children deliver. Yes. They are the parents, they are the ancestors of the animals. Okay. This selection is based on the belief that such animal selected is likely to perform equally or even better than the ancestors. You have observed their parents, their ancestors, maybe giving birth 3, 4, 5 at a time. Yes, you see it as a good, they have good traits. So you select their offspring, their babies, because of the performance of their parents. Or because they can produce a lot of milk. Because they can work very hard in the farm. Because they are resistant to the weather and the climate and so on. Or because what they eat, you see them on their body, it reflects on their body. Feed conversion. Then you select. Pedigree selection. Then we have the other type of selection, what we call progeny selection. Selection based on the performance of the offspring. What do we mean by offspring of animals? Yes, baby. Yes, the offspring, the children of the animals. So, farm animals are selected on the basis of the performance of their offspring or progeny. So, these are the ways of selecting animals. Advantages and disadvantages of selection. Farm animals with desired qualities are selected. Desired qualities, you select them. You pick them. Then selection ensures that only the best naturally available animal is used. You select the best and then use them in animal breeding. What disadvantage has it? The disadvantage of selection is there is the risk in transporting livestock by lorries and cars. Risk when you select, assuming from a very far distance, you have to transport them, which costs money and risk on the way before you bring them down to where you want to use them. Again, another disadvantage, it is expensive in terms of time and money. Another problem in selection is that it requires experts. So experts are required, not just any layman, because there are certain things they consider test before they can select. So these are the disadvantages. Then another method, we have said in introduction, bringing in new animals from their former original countries or environment to a new environment. Then we have talked about selection, picking. Then what we call hybridization. These are the methods we use to achieve animal improvement. Hybridization, or what we call breeding. Hybridization in animal improvement. In hybridization, animals with the best desirable traits are selected, and we use them in breeding with animals with lower traits who are compatible. When you select animals that you know that are of hybrid, then you breed them with local animals that are not as high breeding as those ones you have selected, and use two of them, crossbreed them, and they produce their young ones, their babies, their offsprings. Then you will see that those offsprings they will produce will perform better than the original animals that are within, because those offsprings have inherited from the foreign animals you have selected, and then with a mixture of the local ones. Even though the local ones are not high breeders, but they have some good qualities. For example, some of them are tolerant to diseases. They can withstand the weather, the climate. These are good traits. So you mix them up with those of hybrids, and then the offsprings that will be produced will be better than the local one, and then even the new one you are breeding. So the offsprings which are heterogeneous in character. Why do we use the word heterogeneous? They are not the same, because you are mixing different, the local one and then the important one. We mix up, you breed them, they mate and produce better quality animals. Okay, we go to breeding. There are types of breeding. 1, inbreeding. What do we mean by inbreeding? This is the mating of closely related animals. closely related animals. Mating of closely related animals. Do animals have relations? Yes, they have. Because animals born by the same mother, they are relations. Assuming a male animal and a female animal. We call them brothers and sisters, just like us, human beings. So, assuming you use two of them, you mate two of them to produce an offspring. A brother and a sister, because they are born by the same mother. Then a mother and the son, when you mate two of them to produce an offspring, that is inbreeding. So inbreeding is the mating of closely related animals. For example, a brother and a sister in animals, so a mother and a son in animals. In human beings, it's a sacrilege. You don't do it in human beings. It's just in animals. Inbreeding. You don't do inbreeding in human beings, in animals. So it will lead to development of pure lines or pure breed. Because two of them, a brother animal and a sister animal, they have the same traits. Then when you combine two of them, mate them, the offspring they will produce will be a pure breed, pure line. So you are concentrating those traits that they have in animals. We don't do that in human beings. It's a sacrilege in human beings. Then another type of breeding is line breeding. What do we mean by line breeding? The first one we said inbreeding. In line breeding, this is the mating of animals that are not too closely related. They are related, but not too closely related, like brother and sister. No, not too closely related. Something like half brother and half sister. Half brother and half sister. In human beings, a man, a father may have two wives. A father may have two wives. And then the first wife will bear children, the second wife will bear children. You see, the children of these two women are not from the same mother. They are related, but not too closely related, like brother and sister in human beings. So in animals, it's just like that. Mating of animals that are not too closely related. We call it line breeding. Then another type of breeding, number 3, outbreeding. What do we mean by outbreeding? Mating of animals that are not related at all. There's no relationship between the two animals. That is outbreeding. We have talked about inbreeding, line breeding, and then outbreeding. These are the types of breeding we have. Then we have another type we call crossbreeding. 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 You can see from the word crossbreeding. What is crossbreeding? Crossbreeding is the mating of unrelated or different breeds. Unrelated or different breeds of animals. but they must belong to the same species. Unrelated, different breeds, but the same species. Let me take it again. Crossbreeding is the mating of unrelated breeds or different breeds of animals belonging to the same species. Example: same species. The animals must belong to the same species. In crossbreeding, you will not mate a goat with a cattle. No, they are not from the same species. You cannot mate a rabbit and a cattle. They are not of the same species. It must be cattle and cattle. Pig and pig. Rabbit and rabbit, because they are of the same species, but different breeds. Like we have in in rabbits, we have California, we have Chinchilla. These are different breeds. You can mate them, but they are from the same species. Try to understand what we are saying. Okay. So we said animals belonging to the same species. Example: crossing a Fresian cattle is an example of an exotic foreign cattle. It's an exotic breed, foreign cattle. And then you mate it with our local Muturu. Muturu is our local cattle we have in Nigeria. So when you crossbreed two of them, they will produce an offspring, a cattle that is better than the Muturu and the Fresian, because it has combined the characteristics, the traits of the local and the foreign breeds. That's crossbreeding. And then the Muturu, the local one, is resistant to trypanosomiasis, a disease caused by tsetse fly, which the foreign cattle is not. But this offspring that they will produce will not be resistant, because it has inherited that trait of being resistant from the Muturu. So it will be better, or it will perform better than the exotic breed. Then again, the white Fulani cattle, that's the cattle, our local cattle, the Fulani, that is very rich, very good in yielding milk. It's a good milk producer. So when you mate it with the N'dama, it will produce an offspring that will produce enough milk and at the same time being resistant to trypanosomiasis, which is being resistant to tsetse fly. So this offspring, this baby, this new cattle that will be produced will be better than the local one and then the foreign one. Okay. So in our lesson, we have talked about animal improvement. What do we mean by that? A way of upgrading the animals we have. upgrading it, making it better. And what are the aims of animal improvement? To produce animals that will be resistant to diseases and pests, to produce animals that can withstand the challenges of the weather, the climate, the environment, and so on, to produce animals that will yield high in their products. And then animals, like I told you in the north, is their source of manpower in the north. They use them so much in the north. Animals that can work very well in the farm without being getting tired. And then what are the methods we use? Introduction, selection, and then hybridization. So with this, I would like you to answer this question. What is animal improvement? Explain the aims of animal improvement. 5 aims of animal improvement. And then list the 3 methods of animal improvement. So that's the end of our lesson for today. So revise what we have done. Read your books, stay at home, and be safe from COVID-19. Till we meet again. Thank you.